Call the meeting to order at 6:30. I'll entertain a motion to take the agenda out of order and move to members of the public first.
So moved.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of taking the agenda out of order and then taking members of the public first, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The motion passes. So welcome, I guess you meet with Chloe Leary. Okay.
Thank you. Thanks for making the change in the agenda.
Sure.
Although it's always interesting to hear what people talk about, I have to
Oh,
say.
you
I've learned a
don't
lot.
You don't want to listen to all the bills and all
No,
that other
it's
garbage.
actually kind of interesting. So yes, I am Chloe Leary. I'm the Executive Director of the Winston Prouty Center. Thank you so much for making time on your agenda tonight. I'm actually here representing the Child Care Counts Coalition of Windham County. We are a coalition that came together a little over a year ago to focus on maintaining and increasing child care capacity in our region due to its relationship to economic development, which you may or may not have thought about. So the coalition has broad membership, really trying to focus on, it actually includes Windham Regional Career Center, CCV, so workforce development and professional development, but also Brattleboro Development Credit Corporation, Downtown Business Alliance, Weber, which does workforce development, and then other partners. So trying to broaden the scope of people understanding this issue. So the reason we picked April, it's the month of the young child, so sort of related, but also a couple, probably 3 months ago now, and this is Emily Wagner. Actually, Emily is with Let's Grow Kids, member of the coalition. Let's Grow Kids is a statewide initiative trying to raise awareness. So a few months ago, there was a program, you may have heard about it, Sunny Lane, which is in Brookline, gave their families 2 weeks notice that they were closing. 52 children were gonna lose their spots for early care and after school. It wasn't all early learning. And there aren't that many spots in the county to take on those children. So it was a little bit of a panic, and we as a coalition were thinking about how can we support and get involved with this. Fortunately, somebody bought the business. Susie's Little Peanuts came from up north and bought it. So that's a good end to the story, but I think it really pointed out the fragility of the sector. And it's a good example of how that business closing would have had ripple effects economically. So a business closing in the region means, that business is no longer buying goods and services, that people who work there no longer have jobs, and it's a sort of a loss of that economic activity. But then the families who had kids there, who then could go to work, were maybe having trouble getting to work. If they couldn't find a spot, their productivity was impacted. So they might not be able to pay their mortgage or their taxes. So there's that economic impact. And then their employers were experiencing a problem in terms of if they weren't being productive at work or having a challenge around that. And in a time when we have such low unemployment, that's a challenge. I can speak as an employer that, when I lose somebody, that's expensive and hard to find new people. So the ripple effects in the economy of that business closing, in particular, because it's a business that makes it possible for people to go to work, is something that a lot of people don't actually think about. So we felt like it was a good opportunity to raise awareness and think about childcare as infrastructure. So like roads or broadband or other pieces of what we think of if we want to attract people to Vermont, what are the pieces we want to think about? So childcare, one of the frameworks we're thinking about it is as a 2-generational approach to economic development. So as I said, allowing people to to participate in the workforce if they want to, but also growing our future workforce. So 80% of a child's brain is developed by the age of 3 and 90% by age 5. So before they even get to school, they have grown and learned that much. So that foundation is really important to be ready for school and beyond. And high quality, accessible early learning environments really help that foundation build. So our future workforce is being grown in high quality environments as well. So when we think about, again, wanting to attract people to Vermont and to our region, our communities, and thinking about our aging demographic, it's just a piece, I think, for people to at least be aware of, whether or not anybody can do anything about it or you want to do anything about it, or in the region, again, the coalition's thinking about Windham County. But trying to raise awareness at different levels of governance, I think, is our goal. So, I think one of the pieces we sometimes hear is that kids are better off at home, which may or may not be true. That's great if you can make it work economically, but many families can't make that work economically. You need a 2-income household. And some people also say, well, if you can't afford kids, don't have them. Well, that doesn't really help us grow our communities either. So it's not just about families with young children figuring out, it's how do we want to support that as a community. So thinking about different things that people can do. So right now at the state level, there was a bill that got passed unanimously out of the House, H531, which is about expanding eligibility for financial assistance for tuition and some other sort of childcare infrastructure. It's in the Senate now. I don't know the number of the Senate bill, but you know, so thanking our representatives for supporting it. If it's something you care about, is something to do. Senators Ballant and White it's now sort of in their house, so to speak. So, you know, reaching out and letting them know that it's important and that we care about it is, you know, a small action to do. I also think about things like zoning, or if you have people in your community who want to open a program, how would they do it? There are home-based programs, there are center-based programs. Townsend, actually, you have one program. It's a pre-K program. I think it's in the school. So it's.
I was just going to ask you about the fact that the schools seem to have been detrimental. The public education piece seems to have been detrimental to the home providers and or even things like Sunny Lane. And the fact that I know personally one early ed provider who was doing it in her home, who is now out of business because the schools have taken on that role.
And that's a great point, and it's tricky. It's a very interesting market because you have private providers and public providers, and public schools can offer free tuition to their participants. So for instance,
I don't think it's actually free.
Not free.
But it's so discounted that it gets to the point that there's nobody in the private sector that could ever
match that.
Like even remotely be able to compare with it.
That's right.
And I don't think that the school system was set up for that.
To set up to provide pre-K.
Well, not pre-K, but third graders or not third graders, sorry, 3-year-olds.
Right.
You know,
Yes.
that's getting a little bit far-fetched for me.
Yes.
And I have 2 kids in the school system, and I look at it, and I'm the only one on the board that has 2 kids currently in the system, and I think it's ridiculous. In the simple fact that Sunny Lane is losing out, as well as Timpson Hill and any of the other child care providers.
Yes.
In the part where you're telling us about economic development, all that's doing is putting us backwards. Because one, our tax dollar is picking up that piece, no matter whether it's for the infrastructure in which they're going to, whether it's the busing, whether it's the student or the teachers that are there. I mean, that doesn't even cover one teacher for as many students as Townsend is going to take on that are 3-year-olds.
It's definitely an economic puzzle that doesn't make a ton of sense. And how do we, and again, I think the fragmented market makes it confusing. And for those of us who are private providers, so Brattleboro has 3, or Wyndham Southeast has 3 programs. So we lose families. And the interesting thing about the business is and the demand is on infant toddler care. It is impossible. If you have any pregnant friends, I hope they're on waiting lists because good luck finding a spot. Although Susie's does have some spots, I'll just say, in case anybody needs to know. So the way you make it work financially, first of all, you can't charge what it costs, or we'd be charging parents like $2,000 a month. It's really expensive, but you balance it out between infant and toddler care and preschool care because you can have more preschoolers. It doesn't cost quite as much. So if the schools suck off the preschoolers and private providers are left with infants and toddlers, that's really expensive. So there's a whole bunch of variables that I'm agreeing with that make it really challenging as schools take all those 3 to 5 year olds.
Well, I just always thought it was elementary school. Not pre-elementary school and all the other stuff.
Well,
and I don't even mind it if it wasn't coming off of our dollar.
Yeah.
So the development part is where
The development part in terms of, when you think of development, you mean developing
the economic development.
Yes,
We're creating a deficit more than developing into a positive.
Well, what I'm curious about, and what I think, as a coalition, again, thinking of different people joining and having a perspective, is there a way to make it all work? And part of the challenge is this: we have 10 hours of pre-K. So 3 to 5 year olds are entitled to 10 hours a week for 35 weeks a year of pre-K. First of all, that's not developmentally appropriate time-wise. Like, who needs 10 hours of school? And as I just said, brain development, like, it's all school. Eating a meal, playing on the playground, they are learning. So it's all school to them. And 35 weeks a year, it just doesn't match how does that work for families who have to be in the workforce? Then you have to think of after school or summer care. So I think I'm curious if there are different ways to make the whole puzzle work. So it is moving forward because it's all, I don't know what the answers are. It's very complicated. And then I think all the school budget stuff and the average daily membership and where the funding is coming from just makes it even messier. So, I think that if we think about, and I don't know the answer whether or not it makes sense to make it like public education in the sense, do we want to support early care and learning because we recognize it's part of the whole continuum? I certainly wouldn't want to see early care and learning turn into little desks and little standardized tests. Play-based learning is really what's appropriate, I would argue, to grade 3, but that's another conversation. So I think there are different ways we as a community and a region and a culture have to decide how do we want to invest in our youngest people. So it's very complicated. It was way more than I meant to tell you, but thank you for bringing up how complicated it is because it's quite a puzzle. And I think those of us who are in it all the time and thinking about the market and trying to get people to care and understand, trying to figure out, and I'd be curious for feedback from you, like what does make sense and what resonates with people in terms of this, we're still paying for it somehow, or what makes the most sense financially is what we hope to get the message.
Well, I think one of the biggest issues for any of the town governments is the fact that taking more of this burden on, the early childhood burden into the schools has an impact on the tax rate, which in turn has a negative impact on the business, on the development of business.
Yeah.
They can't afford to build here.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So while the parents can have all the childcare they need, where are they going to work?
Yeah.
And I would feel different if Townsend wasn't the pilot program for the public schools to start taking on 3-year-olds. Where it's like, I don't think the school board voted that in. I think it was the principal that took it on himself, Mr. Roach. And it's like, I think it was stuffed down our throats as taxpayers. And it's like, it doesn't sit well with somebody like me, who has a little bit of an understanding of the inner workings of that place. And I'm not against, my wife worked at Winston Prouty Center years ago.
Thank you.
So it's like, I am pro everything to do with that. Same with Sunny Lane, Timpson Hill, and any of the other ones. I just think that there comes a point where it's like, and
You would leave it in the private sector.
I would leave the 3-year-olds in the private sector. And if the town wanted 3-year-olds into the public school system, let the town vote on it. Don't let one guy that's from New Hampshire that's here for 2 years and all of a sudden now we're changing the structure of our school.
Right.
And if Newbrook wants to do it, and Jamaica and Warrensboro, that's fine.
Yeah.
I have no problem with that. But this is my personal feeling about it.
Yeah. Do you feel like some of the pressure, sometimes I think about how this interfaces with Act 46 and the pressures on schools to get more revenue since there's a shrinking student population. Is this a way to get more students so that more revenue comes into the local school?
That's a lot of the.
I think
That's the thought.
That's what it feels like.
Kathy off, but I think Kathy knows exactly where I'm coming from, where we have had that business model shoved down our throat about how much money it's going to bring into our school system, and the only thing I'm looking at is my tax bill, or not the only thing I'm looking at, but I'm looking at my tax bill, and I'm not seeing where their business model is shaken down on paper.
Yeah.
It's a lot of red, no black. And it's just, you take and you break that down, and it's like, we didn't as a town vote for it. If we voted for it and everybody was all in line with it, or 51% was, I wouldn't have a problem with it, but we didn't.
Well, they're also trying to make accommodations for those parents that are using that in place of daycare, for lack of a better word, by doing after school. They'll keep the kids until I think it's 5 after school, and again, that's taking away from the public providers who. Again, those kids after school used to go to somebody's house after school, and there was a revenue generated from watching those children, etc. That's not happening anymore either, because it's much cheaper to pay the $20
Yes,
to the
right.
school than it
They can
is.
buy it. It's not as expensive.
Exactly. So I think the state has created a lot of the deficit that we have in childcare in this area. We used to have 2 or 3 people in this town
Yeah.
that did it
Yeah.
within their home,
Uh-huh.
and they're all
And they're
gone now.
gone. Yeah, yeah, I would definitely say this is a little childcare desert in the sense, I mean, even Jamaica has a little capacity and, you know, Timpson Hill, Sunny Lane, Mount Snow, there's some Wilmington capacity, but yeah, this is a little bit of an empty area. And it's hard, it's a really, so, you know, what I'm, again, curious about and what the coalition's sort of focusing on is how can we, because there is the need. You know, I do believe that, and actually I'm gonna give you, I have folders for you that have different information about the bill, and Let's Grow Kids has actually done some analysis, and you have one person missing, I
Yes,
think.
we do.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So some analysis of what the demand might be, like if we could actually meet, if we had programs and home providers, can I give them before you get it? What, you know, I do think it's possible, there's business potential there if we can figure out how to make it work. So if you have people who would be interested in reopening, and then they change the regulations and the requirements, which is good, we want high quality teachers, but can we, you know, how do we phase it in so that it makes it an attractive business opportunity for people and not something that's really hard to get into?
The state also changes the regulations,
Right.
because again,
Yeah.
as you alluded to, your bread and butter from a business standpoint are those 3 to 5-year-olds.
Yes, right,
That's your bread and butter, because you don't have to have the staff
right.
per
The same
student.
different machinery.
Exactly. And that's exactly what drove out the person I was talking about
Yeah.
earlier, is all she had left were the really
And
young
business owners,
babies.
right,
And
right,
she didn't want to employ.
No.
So
Yeah.
how many people, how many
right,
children she had? 2?
right, exactly.
And she had one of her own,
Right.
which leaves her with 1.
Yeah, no, yes, it's not really sustainable to do it. So.
And also in the older model, providers would work year round. So now the school picks it up for half the year
That's
And then
right.
drop
and
them.
expects private providers to pick
That's
up the
right.
summers, and
Right.
That
you
just
can't
worked out.
make it that way.
That is a really excellent point. There's a big flaw in the system. So, and then how do those of us who are private providers position ourselves and respond to this changing market? You know, I worry about it a lot and try to figure out how to adapt to that. And ultimately, because the cost of providing care is more than the tuition we charge. So the Priority Center charges $1,000 a month right now across the board. You know, some programs differentiate between infants and toddlers, and we want to keep it simple. Not a lot of families pay that because we have a lot of scholarship and a lot of families who receive financial assistance from the state, so that's great. But if I want to raise wages, or if I want to try and do different things, the only place to go is to tuition, and we just can't do that. I can't make it more expensive for families because then it's really not accessible. So we're really in a bind in terms of how to be creative around how to build the whole system up. And again, just to tie it back to why people should care is because if we don't have good childcare, we have that really significant piece of economic development infrastructure that's missing. We will not, you can pay whatever that incentive, like we'll pay you $10,000 to move to Vermont to, you know what, like great. How about $10,000 to pay for childcare? You know, I don't know what the answers are, but I think our goal is to make sure people understand that it's an important piece of the economic development puzzle. It's not just about one family and their kids and what it costs them. So it's it's important. So
Okay. Anybody have
Wow.
any questions?
you guys are
There
very
there was a-
informed. And
There was a great item today on VPR about this.
I read that. Yes. And the last line, what was it? I actually want to post it on our Facebook site. That it's very
Did you
striking.
read it on VPR?
I read it through 7 days actually. You know how they do the text. 7 days sends out the
Yes.
So it was really good.
It was very interesting.
So we'll stay tuned. We'll see what the Senate does because that would be a big boon. I think it would help a lot of families with that bill. But yeah, good.
Now, can I ask a quick question? Have you approached other towns at select board meetings? And
Yeah.
what do other towns say?
I think everybody seems to really understand the issue. We haven't been in a town, so I've been to Dummerston, Putney, Guilford, Jamaica, Newfane, and here. And nobody else has mentioned the issue you were talking about in terms of 3-year-olds in the school and what the school program looks like. So I think that,
Because that's just us. With
Yeah.
the 4-year-olds right now.
Right, because the other ones have 4. So, but Dummerston, we talked a little bit because they are thinking about opening a pre-K because they have space, because they have a dwindling student population. So, but
But at Dummerston, it was brought to the public's attention that it was being
it wasn't.
kicked down the road.
Yeah.
'Cause I
So
don't believe it was in Townsend.
yeah, I don't know.
I mean, did, obviously you know, did you have an idea?
I didn't.
Yeah. So.
You Rich? Cynthia? All right, well,
Yeah, no, it's an interesting
glad I
problem. So
was able to
Yeah.
take the top off the can.
yeah,
Let the worms out.
yeah.
I guess so. Well, no, I think that's
I
what
agree.
needs to be happen here. I thought that we came here to vote on things like this and pass it as a town, not as one body of legislature out there making a rogue assessment for
Yeah.
everybody else of what everybody else wants to do.
Yes.
So that's
Right.
where my concern stands with it, and if everybody wants it, hooray.
Right, but let everybody see.
We'll take on
Don't-
newborns next,
Yeah.
that's fine.
No.
But
Yeah. Well, if you do have any other thoughts or want more information or even help thinking about something that, I, as a member of the coalition, has sort of represented the coalition, please absolutely be in touch because we definitely want to keep raising awareness about this and make sure people understand the issue and have information. Yeah.
I just have a question regarding like parents of 3-year-olds that are now able to send their toddlers to a public school system. What about the parents that don't work and might be receiving assistance from the state? Like, how does that, like, I guess, impact them, like, with regard to, like, oh, hey, I can now send my 3-year-old to pre-K, like, I'm gonna do nothing.
Well, so in terms of the 10 hours of the entitlement to 10 hours a week, anybody can get that no matter what, no matter their working status. It's just hard to find a program that's only 10 hours a week. They would usually have to pay more. So, and in terms of financial assistance, so there's subsidy that people can apply for within income limits. There's actually a work requirement. You have to be working. You cannot just get tuition assistance or financial assistance from the state for childcare if you don't have a reason to get it.
Okay.
So yeah.
Anybody else, any questions? Thank you very much.
Oh my
for
gosh,
taking
thank you.
time. Yeah.
Thank you.
Really fun.
Thank you very
Learned
much.
something.
Appreciate it.
Very
Coming
healthy
in.
conversation, I think.
and helping us,
Yeah, raise the issue.
Well,
Yeah,
Yeah.
let me open that can of worms.
Yeah.
but helping us,
Yeah.
gain knowledge
Yeah.
about what's going on.
Yeah. No, this is definitely very interesting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And now I'll seek out for as much as the town treasurer reports. So, thanks very much. Have a
Thank
good
you.
evening.
Okay. Then moving back to the regular agenda, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes from April 9th, 2019.
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the minutes from April 9th, 2019, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. Additions and deletions. I would like to add, under new business, Southern Vermont Therapeutic Writing Center Town Hall use request. And at the end, I'd like to add an executive session to discuss personnel appointment. Anyone else have any additions or deletions?
No.
Alrighty, then moving on to the warrants, wherever the devil they are.
Make a motion to pay check warrant number 1, payroll, in the amount of $11,108.28.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of paying payroll warrant number 1 in the amount of $11,108.28 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes.
Make a motion to pay payroll number 2, Make a motion to pay warrant number 2, payroll taxes in the amount of $4,548.35.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of paying payroll tax warrant number 2 in the amount of $4,548.35 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes.
Make a motion to pay check warrant number 3, general fund, the amount of $19,509.78.
I have a different.
Yeah, we have a different number.
Oh. There should be two, the
Did they get added together?
phone bill, yes, sorry, the phone bill got added in today.
After the fact, after you did the sheet?
After I did the sheet, but then I redid the sheet
All right, well,
printed it out. Do you have
back up the bus a little bit, and we'll make a motion to pay check warrant number 3 out of the general fund, the amount of $20,098.53.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of paying general fund warrant number 3 in the amount of $20,098.53 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes.
Make a motion to pay check warrant number 4 out of the highway fund, the amount of $6,070.04.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of paying highway warrant number 4 in the amount of $6,070.04 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes.
Make a motion to pay check warrant number 5 out of the equipment fund, the amount of $2,369.07.
Second.
Is there any discussion?
Steve, that had the leaf springs for T1, right? Is that one?
There is leaf springs in there for T1, yes.
Was that just regular maintenance?
Broken.
Oh, they're broken.
Replacement of a broken spring.
Okay.
Any other questions? Hearing none, all those in favor of paying equipment warrant number 5 in the amount of $2,369.07 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes.
Make a motion to pay check warrant number 6
General.
out of the general fund, the amount of $20,000.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of paying general fund warrant number 6 in the amount of $20,000 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. All right, so that takes care of payrolls. All right, then moving on to the highway report. I'll start before we turn it over to Steve. The Vermont municipal grant for the Stone Arch Bridge that we applied for at the behest of the Historic Society. We did receive notification from Megan Brunk from the V-Trans that the application has been denied, and it just thanks us and encourages us to resubmit next year. So at this point in time, this tax bill, when we start looking for tax rates, will include the additional $88,000 to be raised for that project to be put into a reserve until such time as they can get a grant from V-Trans to actually do the majority of the work on that Stone Arch Bridge. So right now it's pretty much in abeyance for any work being done right now. All right, so I'll let Steve do whatever he's got for a report then.
Update on the dam bridge closure. The bridge did close today. It is still scheduled to be shut down for 2 weeks for maintenance and repairs. State Forest Road we worked on last week. We got it in good shape to handle the additional traffic. There is currently no mud on that road and it hardened up pretty good. We did put the 4 new tires on the grader and that's been up and running. And we're continuing to clean culverts and grade roads as they do dry out. And that's all I have.
Any questions from anyone?
Do you have a plan to start looking at trees?
As
So you're
soon
kind of
as,
doing that as.
as soon as I get mud off my list, we have a lot of brush cleanup to do from the November storm.
Yeah.
Any road that you travel on in this town, there's brush on the sides of the roads. So we have a lot of cleanup to do. As we go up and down those roads, cleaning up brush and chipping brush, we'll be identifying trees that we can work on this summer
Great.
in between other projects.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions? Alrighty, then the town clerk, I didn't see a counter sheet this time around. And the treasurer wasn't able to make it tonight, so I can do his report on the balances. The let's see, the account has its traditional 30,000 in the checking, and the sweep account has $764,895.71. So, is there any other discussion about the finances from the treasurer's standpoint?
Nope.
Questions? All right. I did.
Do we get the CDs rolled over?
That's what I was just gonna talk about, that $20,000 bill that we paid to highway warrant, or warrant number 6, was actually for the fire truck.
Oh,
There was 1 year missed, so that was this year's plus the missed year, so $20,000 was rolled into the CD. And that's why that warrant is in there, that check was already gone, the money's already been rolled over, and we just had to complete the paper trail for that. Okay, so moving on then, we did receive a request from Robert Spencer to hold a household hazardous waste collection at the town garage on Saturday, June 1st from 8 until 12. And they would like the town's permission, or would like to know if there's any issue with using the town garage as the site for that collection. This is all handled by their personnel. It shouldn't require any additional resources from the town.
Okay.
But if someone would like to make a motion to allow the hazardous waste on Saturday, June 1st, I'll let him know.
So moved.
Second.
Is there any further discussion on that? Hearing none, all those in favor of allowing the Wyndham Solid Waste to hold a household hazardous waste collection site at the town's garage on Saturday, June 1st from 8 to 12, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. So that, Carla, tomorrow we will need to be in touch with Mr. Spencer and let him know that that's been approved. Moving down then to old business, which I gotta find first. We have request for 2 liquor licenses. Excuse me. One is a first-class license this is for the West River Community Project Company. This is the inside bar permit. So I would entertain a motion to approve a first-class liquor license for the West River Community Project Company.
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion on that? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the first-class license for the West River Community Project Company signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The motion passes. Then we have a request for an outside consumption permit. This is for their Friday
Farmers market.
farmers market where they have the beer and the pizza. So this is for the same company, West River Community Project Company, an outside consumption permit. And I would entertain a motion to approve such.
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion on those?
Do they have a designated area, or does it go from Route 100 to the
Oh,
dam?
no,
No, they have it. Yeah, they have it pretty well roped up.
It's pretty well contained. I was out there last year with the raffle tickets, and it was
That's nice.
pretty well contained to that back area. So all those in favor of approving approving the outdoor permit for the West River Community Project Company signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, motion passes. Can't talk and write my name at the same time. Can't do 2 things.
That's why I can never take minutes.
We're gonna split it and then we'll go this way. Right?
Left-hand side?
Yes, please. Thank you. Okay, so those will need to go to the town clerk tomorrow. The next thing is officer appointments. Carla's been in touch with several individuals to see if they were willing to continue to serve in their roles. Craig Hunt is willing to continue on as the cell tower representative. Susan Hunt as one of the weighers of coal. Eileen Fahey has said she'll continue with the Howard legacy. Crystal Mansfield volunteered for the Valley Cares Board, and Patricia Jerez as the 911 coordinator. So I would entertain a motion to appoint those individuals as officers for 2019-20.
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion on any of it? Hearing none.
Does Craig actually have to climb the tower?
Maybe should make it. All those in favor of appointing those individuals to the specified positions signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, motion passes. So the other thing, we're getting down to the really difficult ones on the list. If you come in contact with anyone, you've got an updated list in your box that, like Brian Schmidt, as many times as I've seen Brian, I never remember to ask him if he's willing to serve as the fire department liaison. If any of those people that have got blanks beside their name, if you run into them, if you could ask them if they're willing to still continue to serve, that would be appreciated. Okay, let's see, let's go this way. I'm running out of, good thing Crystal's in here, I can take her spot too. All right. So then, the next one is going to be really, really interesting. Yeah, let's do the town hall first, so I don't forget it. I'll forget it if we don't do it first. So we received an application for the Southern Vermont Therapeutic Writing Center. They would like to have their meetings here on the second Monday of each month in the town hall. And they're requesting that the fee be waived. They have provided insurance policy number. Do you want to see?
No.
I should mention I have a relationship with them, so I will recuse myself.
Does AA pay?
AA usually pays some kind of a nominal fee, anywhere from $10 to $15 is what they usually leave.
Would that be too much, you think?
I don't think so. We can certainly ask them.
Yeah, I would be interested in just asking them to, minimum amount of that wouldn't, be, anything unreasonable, especially if we have other organizations that are contributing. I think that's a minimal amount.
Well, like I said, one thing that does do is it keeps the key relatively accessible, because when they pay a certain amount, then we always know if the key's lost. We can always go rekey the building.
Well, that's
part of that as well.
Well, not only that, but it also keeps us on an even keel with everybody.
Right,
It's
I
not,
don't disagree.
You know,
So would somebody like to make a motion to allow the Southern Vermont Therapeutic Writing Center to hold their monthly meetings in the town hall for a fee of?
$15.
Okay. Okay, but I still need a motion.
It's moved.
Oh, okay.
Second.
Okay. Did you get that motion, Carla? All right.
It's a slow motion.
I was gonna say, is there any additional discussion? Hearing none, then all those in favor of allowing the Southern Vermont Therapeutic Writing Center to hold their monthly meetings in the town hall on the second Monday of each month signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
Aye.
Okay.
Did you vote?
I'm going to.
Good.
I'll vote in the affirmative, so that means the motion passes with one abstention. Okay? And let's put that down here. Good date, today is the 23rd. Oh, well. But she spilled all over this that it won't write.
I don't think she spilled anything on it.
Uh-huh.
That may have happened in transit.
Okay, so for, and if you wait for me tonight, I will get you a copy of this for her.
Okay.
And you said 15, correct, Rob?
Yep.
Okay, so we will get her a copy of that, and then we'll get it into the book as well. All right, now, moving on to, I didn't add that to the new business, did I? I didn't. I need to add another thing to new business because I forgot it. It's actually a discussion that goes with opening the audit bids, and it's about a cash versus accrual method of accounting. And one of the issues that we've had over the last 3 years is the way that the professional auditor is looking at our accrual accounts. They don't understand the NIMRIC software, first of all, and they're having a difficult time coming to terms with the fact that we don't play by all the rules, in that we don't have a depreciation schedule for everything from the building to the trucks to so that we can't have that annual piece added to it. And when I was soliciting the audit, or the bids for the audit, one of the prospective bidders basically asked me why we hadn't moved to either a cash basis or a modified cash basis on our accounting, as most towns had, most of the smaller towns had. And I couldn't answer that because we've always done it this way, and I couldn't answer that. So he asked me, he said, would you like me to put forth a bid for both auditing the accrued method, which we've been doing, plus moving toward a cash method? And I said, sure, we can have that discussion. And then I asked Elaine to ask Gloria Boyd to come in and speak to us, and Carla and I sat down with them for a couple of hours today to find out what was going to be entailed to try to change the way the town does its accounting. And overall, we would finish out this year in the accrued method. So everything would be exactly as it's been in the past. And beginning July 1st, we would start with a new method where we wouldn't have to worry so much about, prime example, we order a truck in 1 year and it doesn't come in until the next year, and you've got to do all this backing out and rearranging just to make the books right. We don't have to worry about that. When the money comes in, it's credited. When the money goes out, it goes out. We still maintain the 3 separate accounts, the general fund, the highway fund, and the equipment fund. We would still have all 3 of those funds. But what we wouldn't have was what we term the fund balances at the end of the year, where we're showing exactly how much cash we've got in each of those 3 funds at the end of the year, instead of a multitude of due to, due from.
Right, instead of having to back it in and back it out.
Exactly. So that's one of the things that we're going to be seeing when we open these audit bids, is you're going to have one that's for straight accrual, or from both of these individuals, and then we're going to have a second one that is for this cash that we're
for the conversion.
For the conversion, right. So I wanted to kind of fill you in so that you understood we're not comparing straight apples to apples to apples. I will also say that we've had some difficulties in the past working with the auditors that we've been using, in that we didn't seem to get the attention that we needed. They would come down here in October. We would spend a week with them looking things up, answering questions and whatnot, and then that week before Christmas, and usually the week after Christmas, it was always not fun around here, because you've got this barrage of questions that could have been answered in October that just didn't come up until that time, which has led us to being late with the town report as well, because we don't get our audits. So that all being said, the first one that I'll open this is from McSorley McCoy, who's the one we had a 3-year contract with.
I have one quick question before you do that. The NIMRIC software doesn't care whether we do accrual or cash.
It sounded, when we were speaking to Lori today, they will have to make some changes within the software at the first of the year, but generally it doesn't care.
But it accommodates it.
It does.
Okay.
We won't have to change it. We won't have to change something to lose my voice. We don't have to change something.
Didn't ask permission.
Somebody's gotta have a
I
knife.
got a minute.
Somebody's gotta have a knife.
I just got it done.
Thank you. Mr. Gunn. Unless you're doing a lot of good. Okay, proposal to serve. And this, again, this is McSorley McCoy. I have to find the pertinent pages. Okay. So the proposal is for $13,000 for the year ended June 30th, 2019. It doesn't say anything about a multi-year. So this is for, I'm guessing, just the 1 year. Okay. Anybody who wants to look at
No,
that?
take a look.
My gosh.
Looks like you might need to sharpen that letter opening a little bit.
Excellent. My fingers won't do it. Okay, this is from Sullivan and Powers. And this is the one that has the 2 in it. This is, okay. From profile, find the right number of people. Okay. I'm gonna find it sooner or later. Go for services. Would I get past it? Transfer fee schedules in the back. Okay, this seems to be a 3-year proposal. They're estimating that on the accrual basis, which is what we're doing right now, for 1 year it would be $25,800, and for the next year it'd be $26,300, and then 2021 would be $27,100. Cash basis, which is the new one we're talking about, is $18,000, $18,004, and $18,009 to be able to do the accrual, or the cash basis. So you're talking $18,000 to do the cash, and you were, whatever I said on this one, 13, was it?
13 was,
We do have 15 in the budget, I think it is. I think this is just a duplicate. Must be because you did it both ways. Yeah, they're same thing. So anybody who wants to take a look at that? Did you guys see this one?
Kathy, can you please repeat the cash?
Yeah, as soon as one of them comes back.
yeah,
18,000, 2019, 18,400 in 2020,
And 18,900.
18,900 in 21.
And then they broke down the hours. So the nice thing about it is they're actually getting into it and detailing the amount it costs. Let's say that they send 1, 2, 3, 4 people down to do it, whereas we've always had one in the past. That's probably the majority of the cost difference is the number of people, so. So we can either take some time to digest this because we don't have to do it right now, or.
Why was the accrual almost double?
Because it takes more, the accrual is more difficult to do, because now you do have to go and start moving money back around in and
But
out.
But, yeah,
between
why
the
is it
two-
double
between the
Mixler
two
and
companies
McCoy?
for accrual, Sullivan's almost double.
Right, right. Again, one person versus this list of people that are going to be doing it is about what it amounts to. Do you think you'll get a better job done? I mean, I know there's been some issues with what we've had in the past, just the way it's been
Now,
done.
do they have an idea how many days it'll take for them to come in with 4 people and get it done?
He seemed to think that they would be able to do it 2 to 3.
Days?
Yeah.
Now, how long did McSoley and McCoy take?
Yeah, well, if you, actually physically in the building, 3 to 4 days, and then, like I said, a good 2 weeks of back and forth with emails and,
So you're looking at 3 weeks between
Easy.
time here and
Yeah.
back and
Yeah.
forth.
so that's the majority of the difference right there, is they seem to be going to come in and do it all at once as opposed to. But, like I said, we can do it either way, we can think about it, you can take them home, take a look at them.
If Carla can make us some copies for us to look at.
What-
Yeah, that'd be great.
What copy do you want?
One
Want
of
the
each.
whole thing? Why don't we
You
just?
already have 2 copies of this.
Sullivan Power, yes.
All right, so we'll just, I don't know if you would like a copy for yourself, but
No,
I would like one to look at the cash part of it.
I mean, we could,
Yeah, I'd like to copy the cash one.
of the Sullivan Powers?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm also,
And then the McSolin McCoy, like I said, that's,
I mean, it's really the executive summary is, everything else is
right,
a resume.
exactly. I mean, they've got the pricing schedule in here, they've got, et cetera, et cetera. It's all in here. What part of it would you like photocopied?
Not the resume, just the meat and potatoes.
Just the dollar amounts?
Yep.
So we'll get that and stick it in your boxes. And if you have a chance, when you get done
When
looking.
I'll
just bring
return it
back.
when I'm done.
Yeah, so we have a copy of it in here.
I'll make sure I'll make all nice notes.
Where's the proposal, but it really doesn't break down the.
Actually, if you want to leave this copy here, Steve, if you want to make notes on that one, and then leave it in my box, just give me a call, let me know when you've gone through it, and I'll go through it after.
Okay.
I mean, is this what you want, this pricing schedule?
Yes, pricing.
Yep. So we can do a page of that, okay. Let's make a note of that.
In there, does he explain the benefits of moving to a cash basis versus
No.
the accrual?
No, that wouldn't be appropriate, that was, he just priced it out at the two different pieces. Okay, so those will stay there for the time being. Okay, we got that. Make sure I've got all these pieces here, we did that. So unless there is something else, David, no? Then I would entertain a motion to move into executive session under 1 VSA section 313A3 to discuss the appointment of a public officer.
So moved?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of going into executive session to discuss the appointment of a public officer signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. There will not be a resolution from that.